Good afternoon, Your Excellency, Mr. Vice Rector, dear colleagues. I'd like to extend to all of you a warm welcome to Babeș-Bolyai University and within the academic community of our Faculty of European Studies. Today's event is an exceptional opportunity to engage in a discussion with His Excellency, Dr. Per Gebauer, Ambassador of the Federal Republic of Germany to Romania. May I just add that, of course, the timing could not be better or worse, because in the light of the so-called sinuous developments that have been happening, well, actually in both of our countries and well above that level as well as in the European Union, we are very interested in this very strong partnership that has been decisive not only for Transylvania, for UBB of course, but of course for all of our country. At this time, it is my pleasure to extend the floor to Professor Cristian Săcărea, Vice Rector of Babeș-Bolyai University and the host of today's event, to deliver his opening address.
Your Excellency, Mr. Dean, dear colleagues, younger colleagues, and younger for a longer period colleagues, I'm very pleased that we can host this event. It seems to get a kind of tradition that the German ambassador wants to meet the students and staff of our university, and maybe if you agree we can establish it as a tradition at an event, meet the ambassador as we have promoted it internally at our university. As Mr. Dean said, it's the perfect moment, and what university could host this kind of meeting related to political aspects, to Europe, to our home, the United Europe, and Babeș-Bolyai University, which as a multicultural university is a reflection of Europe. We have, according to former European Commissioner, the most complex structure as a university in the entire European Union, with 3 official academic languages, various teaching languages, and so on, with the largest academic community in Romania, being the best positioned university across the country. And we are very happy and proud of this, of our status as a multicultural university, and also being here since 1581. This is also a tradition of multiculturality, of resilience. Does not happen very often that universities are so resilient against the odds of history. And this university has seen a lot. Political changes of whatsoever, language changes, wars, pandemics, because the last pandemic was not the first one in the history of the university, but hopefully the last one. And but that, my speech should not be very long because our guest should come to it. So thank you again for being here. Thank you, all of you, for being here, and let us enjoy this event all together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Rector, for enabling today's event to happen. Although it is not His Excellency's first time to the Faculty of European Studies, I should like to once again underline what our community stands for in just a few words. We are one of the younger faculties, which is explicable, since we're talking about European integration studies within Babeș-Bolyai University. We've just celebrated our 3 decades of existence, and we're very proud of that. We were to some degree a creation of our European Commission, and we've had German universities, for example, along with us. Since the beginning, I may just say, like the University of Münster, we had very, very successful dual degree programs with German universities. And also, I'd like to emphasize the fact that the purpose, our very existence, relies on the promotion of European values, of European integration, and to foster the necessary knowledge in order to develop this across the region, not just in Romania, also because we have, although we are just a 1,500 strong academic community, maybe neither too big nor too small for UBB standards, we are one of the most international faculties in UBB. We've grown a lot due to this factor, due to the European projects that we've been able to implement and that have connected us to the entire world. We've grown on a philosophy of multilingualism and multiculturalism, And German has had a very esteemed place in our teaching, in our research, and many of our distinguished colleagues have dedicated ample time and resources in order to cultivate relations with German-speaking universities, German-speaking countries. So another recipe, if you will, has been pragmatism, and we've tried to make a very, I would say, interdisciplinary setting for our students in terms of competencies. They know on equal footing international relations and European studies, but they're also very good at economics, at law, at communications and communication sciences and negotiations, at foreign languages. So I would say that they are very well equipped for what Europe has to offer for today. And last but not least, I'd like to think that we are very well anchored in European affairs. We've had a humble contribution whenever we've had the chance to, for example, to work with the Romanian presidency of our Council of the European Union, or to work with the simplification of access to European funds and regional development policies, and to create strategies of development for urban areas and so on. So we've tried to play our share, and we've also had very distinguished guests, much like today, enabling us to come into contact with the whole of the academic community, with students and teachers, and to explore the topics that are very hot on the European agenda, be it conflict resolution, conflict management, be it furthering the European integration process, or a very challenging topic that we've paid a lot of attention to, which is the enhancement of the enlargement policy. Unfortunately, one of the Cinderellas of the latest mandates of our European Commission. So it is under such auspices that our commitment to the EU, to NATO, to our allies, and to our friends like Germany is enhanced, is reinforced by your presence here. We're very thankful that you're here, and we really look forward to your conference. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Adrian, Christian, dear faculty members, and of course, dear students. Let me start with expressing my gratitude. It's truly a great pleasure to be here. You mentioned I've been here last year together with my French colleague in the framework of the Élysée Day, the celebration of friendship and friendship. I very much enjoyed our discussion back then. That's why I sort of forced everybody to come together here again. And I just want to thank in particular the students. I've heard that you are in the midst of the exam phase, which is not the most pleasant one. I can imagine one or the other might have also other things to do than to listen to me. So it's greatly appreciated from my side that you nevertheless took the time to engage. And the idea from my end here is not to lecture you, but to sort of engage in a debate as last year. I know you all have fantastic ideas, and you will have questions, or you might want to challenge me on politics, on political leads and approaches we are taking. Please do discuss as openly as you like. Do not hold back. I always very much cherish this university-style debate. And let me just, to finish off my introductory remarks here, say we have talked a bit about many challenges that are ahead of us for our countries, for Europe, for the world, and we will certainly have a lot of focus on the many challenges in specific. But let me start on an optimistic note. I think if we manage, and I believe we will manage the challenges, it is because we are open societies and we have the academic freedom and the general freedom to debate, to discuss openly. This makes our societies more resilient than societies where you cannot openly discuss, where you cannot challenge certain approaches. So this is something we live today in, in this format, and we live every day, in particular in such a fantastic university as Babeș-Bolyai here in Cluj. So I'm all ears, all eager to hear your thoughts, and be happy to engage in a discussion with you. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much for your openness, Ambassador. The floor is open to the entire academic community for questions.
Yes.
Who would like to break the traditional ice?
Yeah, there's one.
Yes, please, if you will.
Your Excellency was named Ambassador in 2021, and I want to ask you an easy question. Mm-hmm. What was something that impressed you about Romanian culture, and if you see something familiar between Germany and Romania?
Thank you. I'm amazed every day since I've arrived, and I truly enjoy my mandate here. Now, apart from the obvious elements that are, for anybody coming to a country like Romania, are impressive, the natural beauty, the variety of the landscape, there are a number of elements, of course, that connect us. In particular, it's the German heritage, the German minority, having been here for hundreds of years, which is also mirrored here, of course, in this fantastic university. And when it comes to Romania or to Romanians in general, I always like and enjoy every day the openness and flexibility. This is a very, how should I say, non-conformist society. People are openly debating, discussing. It's not a very hierarchical society, at least I experience it. It's not that, you know, in many countries, as a foreign diplomat, you might have to follow a certain protocol, and it takes ages before you get an answer. You write a verbal note to the foreign ministry hands it over to the the Ministry of Economy, because it concerns their portfolio. Again, it takes weeks and months before you can engage in a discussion. Here in Romania, you just pick up the phone and call whoever, whether it's the minister, the prime minister, or whatever. It's a very simple and a very accessible society. Another element of this flexibility or of this openness is the flexibility when there are situations that you did not foresee. There's always somebody, you know, saying, "Okay, let's manage. We'll find a way. Niet je probleem. We'll manage." I sometimes tell the anecdote. I might not have told it to you here, but if I did, then bear with me. We had once a delegation arriving with a private plane, and was due to land in Băneasa Airport. That's a small airport in Bucharest. So my protocol team went there. You know, they were delayed. It was 11 at night, and when our team arrived, the airport was closed because they didn't know that there was anybody coming. So protocol team went inside, you know, and found somebody and says, "Listen, there will be an airplane coming." No, there's nothing on the plane. And then they debated a bit, and then of course they checked and said, "Oh, okay, there's a plane coming after all. Also, let's open again." So this is something you would not experience in Germany or many other countries, where it's always like, no, we have our regulations, we've already closed. I very much like this ability to just adjust to unforeseen circumstances. This is what makes Romania strong. This is what makes Romania very sympathetic, and that's an element I will always cherish. Any other questions, please? Please, yeah.
The grade of the difficulty of the question.
For me to answer, yes, thank you.
So, taking in consideration the events from 5th of November 2024, and taking into consideration from 20th of January 2025, we have a new elected president in the United States, which looks like it will shape all the economic and political or geopolitical strategies and marketing and whatever we know as until today. I would like to ask you, what's the German perspective in that, from the economical point of view, and where do you see the political and economical targets or whatever, and what kind of a relation you will see with Germany and Romania in regards with that?
Obviously, very good and very difficult question to give you an easy answer, which is not possible. Well, first of all, I mean, it must be repeated, and I really want to do this to say we've been so closely connected to the US. Romania has been, Germany has been for many, many years. It will remain a very close partner. There's no doubt. No matter who is in charge, no matter what the administration looks like at a certain period of time. So this is a base for anything we will do when it comes to our transatlantic relations. Obviously, it's foreseeable, and it's already, you know, there are already statements in this regard that Europe will have to face certain particular challenges and to sort of will be encountering certain specific expectations from the new U.S. administration. It's first of all security and our security defense spending here in Europe. It concerns trade and other aspects. Now, if I start with the first two, it's obvious that there's not only an expectation from the US administration vis-à-vis Europe to spend more on our own defense, there's also great need to do so. So this is a bit of a, I wouldn't say low-hanging fruit, but it's an easier target because we know that we have to do more. We are already on a track to do more. It will not be easy to quickly adapt, because in the last years we have, or the last decades I might say, we have believed that after the end of the Cold War, things like military and defense would not be necessary anymore. And of course, it would have been a beautiful world if this had been true, right? We could have saved the money, spent it on other issues. We had to learn the hard way that there are still a number of malign actors, Russia to be named first, that do not live in that kind of world as we like to live in, that still push for aggressive territorial gains by waging brutal wars of aggression. So there's great need for us to invest, and again, we are on the way. We will be certainly pressured from across the Atlantic to do more, to do it more quickly and more assertive, but it's something where we share the goal. When it comes to trade, it's a bit more difficult because we obviously believe, Germany in particular, in free trade, in open markets, because we strongly have made the experience and we strongly believe that this will be beneficial in the end for everybody. Yeah? If you have no trade barriers and open trade, it will be beneficial for all countries. Now we will see a different approach. We already hear that from the new administration, and we will have to find the right answers. I believe that a primary goal of us in Europe, European competence as we all know, will be to show the benefit that's in also for the US. Of course, it would and will require, I assume, adjustments in our trade policy. Now, we had, for example, we have areas where we have had trade barriers ourselves in the sense of protecting our markets against, let's say, farmer goods using genetics or being not produced according to our standards. These are trade barriers. We had reasons why we installed them worldwide. Now, obviously, the US is challenging these trade barriers and say, you're treating us unfair. You know, you have to open your markets. So I assume we will have to adjust, and that's not a bad thing as such. It's not a catastrophe. It's just part of a partnership that you sometimes also have to listen to what your partner, and we will continue to consider you as our partner, what your partner is asking you for. So this is a second element. Then of course we see a third element of the new administration, which some observers might call a disruptive approach, right? Of an approach not so much focusing on the system of the United Nations, of long negotiations, of finding a compromise, but a system that, but an approach that is more using the might, the power that one has, and say, I want this, let's push it through. So this is a new style, which is not very typical for Europe so far. I don't think we can adapt it, but we have to find a way to deal with it. Again, I would not say this is all bad. It might have bad consequences, but on the other hand, if you look at the Middle East, the incoming Trump administration, from the perspective of many observers, and I'm one of them, already had a sort of a positive effect on the readiness of the parties to strike a deal on the release of the hostages. So this a bit more disruptive style that we now see can also maybe change things. We don't know yet how this disruptive style of making foreign policy will affect the Russian aggression against Ukraine and the situation in Ukraine. Some people would fear that there might be a deal just handing the victory to Russia, but many others also see a potential of there being a deal which will also force the hand of Russia, in a sense that Ukraine and Europe's security will benefit. So let's see where we're in. I think we are in a phase where we cannot predict exactly what will happen. But I do count on our ability as Europeans to also, as I say, adjust and to find smart answers. to make sure that the transatlantic relations will stay as relevant and as important and positive as they have been throughout the last decades. Thanks. Thank you. This one question.
So I want to ask you, what do you believe is the most significant challenge for the EU right now, and how can it, or is it already being tackled? And it can be external or internal. Just pick this one.
Well, you ask for one, I'll give you three. External security, internal security, and economic competitiveness. It's not something that I came up with. It's obvious that this is sort of also the core of the let's say, the Polish presidency agenda. But I think these are obvious topics. External security, we are under constant threat. It's not that we are just helping Ukraine because we are being nice people. It's our security that's at stake there. We all know that once Ukraine would fall, the Republic of Moldova would be next. The Baltic state would be in great danger. So whatever we do there, we do in our own interest. And in addition to the pure military threats that we are now facing, there is already a hybrid war waged by Russia against us. We all see this when it comes to infrastructure, underwater infrastructure in the Baltic Sea. There's hardly a week which goes by without another cable being suddenly or accidentally harmed, destroyed, damaged by boats of the Russian shadow fleet. So we need to focus much more than before on our security against external actors and against external threats. Internal security has a lot to do with elements, migration, which is a big topic in Germany. It's maybe not so much a topic in Romania, but in Germany and many other countries where there is the perception of are there security threats going along with an unregulated migration. It has to do not only with security, but obviously also with financial burdens, with the capacity to handle the influx. So Europe, this is obviously a European challenge. Europe has already further developed its tools in this regard. The Common Asylum and Migration Policy Act that was adopted a year ago, I would say, now needs to be implemented. But many more potential ideas, solutions are being discussed, and it will be very necessary for us to come up with answers that keep our societies together, because this topic of migration is now a topic that drives a wedge in our society that sort of divides them. And this division is again fired, beefed up by external malign actors like Russia that use social media to make our societies even more divergent or divisive. Third element, economic competitiveness. Again, obvious that we have lost a bit the pace that other regions, US, China, and others, India, that these regions and countries show when it comes to economic growth. Why? Because I think we have, from my personal point of view, put a too strong emphasis on protecting what we have, much too strong emphasis on sort of securing, making sure that every individual interest is perfectly met, which led to our regulations being really, really heavy in the sense of a lot of words, very complicated, difficult to understand, heavy burden in terms of bureaucracy for our business sector. And that, of course, slows down the competitiveness. It's not an easy thing to cut back, right? Because every single regulation and rule was introduced for a reason, for good reason. It's not that we came up with regulations just to make the life of a company miserable. But the point is that we just overdid it and just now realized that if you pack too much on somebody, that he cannot move anymore. I sometimes share a little anecdote or a little story just to picture it a bit better. If you imagine somebody wants, let's say, the daughter of wants to take a stroll and a walk, tells her parents, "I'll just be out for an hour or two, just walk around a bit and come back." And the parents say, "Well, but do you have something to eat with you? Well, so I just had lunch, I will be back before dinner. Well, take something, just in case. You know, just in case, take something. And then to drink, of course, as well. And what if you get injured along the way? You might, you know, sprain your ankle. Take a box of medical supplies with you. What if you have to stay overnight someplace because the road is blocked? Take a tent with you and a mattress and you know, and a refrigerator. So in the end, this girl will have a backpack of 537 kilogram and will not move 1 inch, right? Every single element might be relevant in this backpack, because in once in a million cases, yes, you might feel, why didn't I have any medical kit with me? But if, nevertheless, you will not move 1 inch if you put all this heavy burden on her. And that's why debureaucratization means that we also have to have a shift in our mindset of saying we need to accept risks. There will be risks to take. That's no question about it. But we cannot go forward without having some sort of risks. If you look at the debate about artificial intelligence, which will obviously change the world and the world as we know, and probably in a much shorter period of time than we would all foresee it or expect it. Europe again was the first region to have an AI Act which very much makes sure that the dangers that are there of AI are curbed, right? Because we all know AI going crazy might kill everybody, right? But so we are the masters in making sure that we protect ourselves against the dangers. But on the other hand, we have to admit that other countries, other regions are much ahead of us because they have less regulation. And in the end, if they develop a dangerous AI, it might endanger us as well. But on the other hand, they will benefit much more from the progress being made there. So I think we need to balance out more our longing for security with the need to take a bit bold steps sometimes and leave some more breathing space. So this was the third challenge that I just want to touch upon, competitiveness with debureaucratization and deregulation being a key element. Yeah, so there's, yeah, nothing over there, yeah.
Well, first of all, I wanted to say welcome to our faculty, Your Excellency. My name is Tatiana, I'm a student here. And I wanted to open up a topic that's quite relevant for the actual context, which is active citizenship and protesting. There are protests going on all over Europe. Serbians are protesting, Georgians were protesting, Romanians were protesting, and Germans are protesting. And Germany has quite a lively tradition when it comes to protesting. And I wanted to ask you to give us an inside perspective on that, on how the German society acts when it comes to protests, and how efficient were protests in Germany in the past few years.
Very good question. We do have indeed a tradition of protests being part of our internal political debate. I think it's a key element to have this right to demonstrate and to assemble peacefully, obviously, but to express your view, even if it's countering the political leaders' perceptions, right? You are allowed to challenge. Again, this is a key element of a democracy, of an open debate. So by and large, I would say it has kept our democracy and our society strong and resilient. And of course, if you look at other countries that you just mentioned, Georgia as an example, obviously there's a great need to raise your voice and to give the young generation in particular, but all the others as well, an opportunity to say we want to stay on a pro-European course, and we are absolutely not accepting shifting back to old-style politics. Very important. Now, what is the perception? I mean, as always, any such element as the ability to demonstrate is good once it's used in a balanced way, and of course there are some elements where these protests have negative consequences, and then it's a very challenging situation for any country whether to curb these demonstrations or to let them run nevertheless, because there's a dilemma there. What do I say with that? I mean, we had, for example, in Germany, climate change is a threat to all of us. It's a key pressing issue. So of course a lot of people took to the streets to protest for more ambitious climate action and climate policies. Some of the activists glued themselves to the roads in order to block traffic, right? And say, this is the best way to, draw attention to our cause. It's questionable whether this was really effective. I would always see also a danger of this not leading people to better understand the need to combat climate change, but this might even backfire of people that were open before saying, okay, I'm so annoyed by this, I hate climate change from now on, I hate debating about it. So you need to find the right way. What about right-wing extremist demonstrations, protesting against, I don't know, migrants and whatsoever, or calling for all sorts of things? What about migrants from some countries demonstrating, we had this in Germany as well, and calling for the introduction of Sharia law in Germany? I mean, are these demonstrations that we feel good about? Well, maybe not. Most of us would feel like, well, that's not what we want to see and what to hear. But that's what I said when I talked about a dilemma for an open society. You must be very prudent in stopping demonstrations, because this might be then develop into a tool of blocking anything that might run against the mainstream political line. On the other hand, you must avoid demonstrations being out of hand and people just misusing their right to demonstrate. A very, very difficult choice to make, but I think so far in Europe we've always managed to find a way of making sure we stay open as societies.
My question is also centered on the same topic, which is really a topic in German society, not always and not necessarily a priority in Romania: environmental issues and climate change. So my question would be, I mean, we all know that Germany has played a key role in shaping EU climate policies. What would be the recommendations meant to support countries such as Romania transition to clean energy?
As I said before, we cannot ignore, or we can ignore, but it will backfire, the fact that the climate is changing dramatically, and we do see the effects all around the globe already. So we do need to take action. In terms of recommendations, I think that's a recommendation, I think, to any country, including Germany. We have to make sure that we keep societies on board. If measures are forced upon society that are not accepted, then these measures might be right. But if you don't have the support of society, you cannot enforce them, unless you become a climate change or anti-climate change dictatorship. Then you can, of course, enforce. But if you want to stay democracy, we all want to stay democracies, then you have to accept the fact that sometimes necessary steps might take longer to be implemented, even if there was a pressing need to push them through faster. This is something where all our societies are currently struggling with, because given the economic pressure, many people do not see the priority in combating climate change so much. They would say, come on, I mean, that's maybe 20 years from now, but I need to make sure I'll have a job tomorrow. So we should not, erase the industrial base in Europe. We must make sure that we stay competitive in the economic sense. And so again, politics often, and also in this case, faces the need to balance and to balance out. We right now are in a new phase of balancing out. You all follow this. The new commission has said we'll sort of enlarge or broaden the Green Deal into a Green Industrial Deal, which is exactly, the idea of saying we need to make sure that we keep our industry strong. We need to make sure that we keep our societies on board. And we need to take them with us. And I think this is the right approach. I very much support this notion of saying we should not leave the goal out of sight. We should not ignore the fact that we are threatened by climate change, but we have to do it in the smartest possible way, which means we have to make sure that our economies are not suffering in a way that everything goes down the drain. So this is my recommendation also when it comes to Romania. Good thing is we are in this together in the European Union. We have similar approaches and similar targets, and that's why we follow a similar course.
I'm coming back and following the question regarding the Green Deal and the impact of the economical part of the society. It's very well known that one of the big engine of the economy, German economy is the auto industry. And we also know in Romania a lot of employers are investing in automotive industry, creating a lot of jobs, like they are the most great in my county. Like example, we have TRV, which makes brake pads and all these kind of things, and is the biggest employer in the county. Like there is 20,000 people working there. Taking in consideration the climate change, give a big punch to auto industry in Germany, as the public information are telling us. What's your perspective in regard to that, and how your auto industry is, or German government is considering to act in the way to help auto industry to keep above the water, because like that you will help us also. Thank you.
Thank you. Indeed, one of the many challenges. The automotive sector is indeed an element that connects us very closely to Romania. As you've rightly pointed out, a number of German not so much car manufacturers, but the suppliers are active here. And that's why indeed whatever happens in Germany will have an effect on Romania and of course a number of other European countries, because we are closely connected. Now, what's the best approach? We have obviously lost a bit as Europe a competitive edge when it comes to e-vehicles. Other actors, Tesla, US, and then of course a number of Chinese car manufacturers are ahead there. And now the best approach let's first of all have a look at how the European Union looked at it so far. It said, okay, we'll fade out of fossil-fueled engines by 2035, sort of force upon the industry this change to e-mobility. While now there is, and in the meantime you have some sort of intermediate goals. You have to reduce the CO2 of your fleet, of the cars you sell, by this or that percentage, by this or that year. What we see right now, what is being debated, was also supported by the German government, is to give a bit more leeway to the industry when it comes to these intermediate goals, to say not by 2025, but maybe only by 2026, you have to reduce your CO2 emission of your fleet by this or that percentage in order to give them a bit more breathing space. There's a constant debate, also driven, I think, by Germany, to what extent green fossil engines might also be an option besides besides e-mobility. Meaning, how can we maybe open the industry or the plan after 2035 for cars that drive on green fuels, use the old technique, but have fuels that do not emit CO2 in the long run. So it's good that we discuss these issues. Again, Germany is very open to make sure that we don't overdo it in terms of regulation and requirements. One element that we have to keep into consideration and keep in mind is that we need to keep our reliability vis-a-vis the industry. The industry often tells us, thanks for being more lenient on the requirements, but please do not change the course every year, because we have to adjust. So it takes a while. And the next year you come around and say, okay, e-mobility, you don't need it anymore, do this or that, and we shift again. So this is something which we also need to keep in mind when we try to be positive and we try to help the automotive sector, which again, you were rightly pointing out, it's a key element for economic strength in Germany. We need to make sure that we stay as politics reliable and predictable. So this would be another recommendation or policy element.
Your Excellency, I would like to respectfully call you out on what I believe to be a great hypocrisy by only using two words: 5,000 helmets. As you well know, on the third day that the war in Ukraine began, on the 27th of February 2022, Germany sent as military aid to Ukraine exclusively 5,000 helmets. How do you think history will look down on that? Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for being very open and very outspoken. As I said, I do like that. Now, the 5,000 helmets indeed were not the right answer given the threat that Ukraine was facing. So history will not look down on this offer as being the right answer, very bluntly speaking. In our self-defense, I think we would also have to address the fact that in the meantime, the picture has changed completely and dramatically. Germany has called out this so-called Zeitenwende. We are by far the largest military supporter next to the US or after the US when it comes to supporting Ukraine. We are constantly providing military goods, even when other countries have already sort of stopped their support. Apart from the military aid, we are financially supporting Ukraine with humanitarian goods, with financial support, direct financial support. So it adds up to more than 30 billion euros, or 35 in the meantime. And this is only the national element. As you all know, European Union is providing a lot of help as well. 20% of that is also coming from Germany being the biggest contributor. But I'm answering this not to, to say, why would you ask? You're right in asking. And I can just give you a bit of an explanation. Why would you start with 5,000 helmets? Germany has a very terrible, dark history during the Nazi era where we waged war against all our neighbors. And we caused tremendous destruction, death, and suffering all across Europe. Ever since then, or after the World War II, we felt never again should we be the source of military threat, of military danger. So we very much focused on economy. We always felt like we keep out of military muscle play. We keep anything military is sort of a bit, we don't want to touch it. So the delivery of weapons, sort of providing weapons to third countries, was a bit off topic, and was just, you wouldn't do that. In particular, if the third country was in war, because if you provide weapons to a third country in war, it uses the weapons and kills with German weapons other people. So we felt like we should not do this. Obviously, it's wrong if a country like Ukraine is attacked by a malign aggressor like Russia. You need to support that country, and you need to support it with weapons. And again, that's what we are doing now. But it's just an explanation, not a justification, but an explanation why the starting point was 5,000 helmets. So thanks for asking, and you're right. It was nothing that Germany would be proud of, but we have learned our lesson in that sense.
Guten Abend, Your Excellenz. From your diplomatic experience in Romania, what are things that impressed you in the Romanian society that you would want to implement, if you could, in the German one? And similarly, what are things in the German society that you think our own could benefit?
Thank you. Yeah, we can benefit from each other in a broad sense. I think the element that impressed me most, I touched upon it earlier, this flexibility and the openness. It's something really so important, because we all believe, or we might think in the first place, that we could organize ourselves like computers being programmed. We have clear regulations and rules, and we follow them, and then the best result comes out. Reality always bites us. Reality always shows us that things are much more complicated, different. So the ability to change your perspective and to change your approach is crucial. Romania, again, is mastering this ability much better than Germans are. So I will take that back to Germany. When it comes to German abilities, I think we have a greater trust maybe in the system or in the government or institutions in general. So, which is also a result of our institutions being rather self-confident. We have a very self-confident judiciary. The judges, no matter who has appointed them, would always feel, hey, I'm a judge, I will decide, I will not listen to anybody, I will just decide what I feel is right. We have a very strong civil servant base in our ministries that sort of would, of course, follow political guidance and support whoever's the minister in the best way, but has also the self-confidence to raise concerns. This is a part of our DNA now, to also question authority when there is a need to question this. Also an experience from our wartime where we perceived in the back that we obviously only followed orders, and we should have had the courage and the stamina to say, no, we cannot do this for this or that reason. So this is an element where I feel we have something that we can be proud of. I know in Romania there are often discussions about trust in institutions, which show me that maybe there's something, you know, to learn or to take from Germany as an example. That would be an element on that.
Good evening,
And then we'll
Your Excellency. Coming back to support of Ukraine, I would like to ask what would be the next step of EU to continue sanctions against Russia, and what would be your view on the final step of this aggression? And I also would like to ask for you to give a message to Russian people.
Thank you. Well, when it comes to sanctions, you know, there's a number of sanction packages that the EU has adopted. Right now, there's a debate, discussion about yet another one, I would say the 16th, I'm not sure, which is mainly aimed at blocking circumvention ways to other sanctions that have been implemented. There is a stronger focus on the so-called shadow fleet of Russia, which is transporting oil and gas, often with very old and in that sense endangering ships. So focusing on that and a few other elements. When it comes to, I think you touched upon the question of you know, what could be an outcome, solution whatsoever of the war. I believe that the Trump administration, as I said, will sort of bring a new element of maybe disruption or new ideas or discussions or negotiations on the international agenda. Everybody would agree to say let's end the war as soon as possible, but there is an element of a pressing need to make sure that this is not just a pause, but an end of a war that brings sustainable peace. This is something from our point of view where we do not see the readiness of Putin to be willing to accept a sustainable peace. He has made it clear on numerous occasions. Russian officials have made it clear on numerous occasions that their vision is to turn back the clock, to say, well, the Soviet Union has ruled over basically a half of Europe. We want that back. That concerns Romania and many other Eastern and Central European countries, and that's something for us which cannot be accepted. So this sorting out the question of where do we go in the future is the most complicated element, and that's why I don't have a plan or an idea of what a future solution might look like. But again, I think everybody would want to have peace again. But unfortunately, the circumstances and the readiness of the aggressor is not there yet from our perspective. So this is, was there a third element to your question? Sorry for, this was sort of a bit sanctions and solution, right?
My third part was about what Russian people can do at this moment.
Okay, sorry, yeah. Well, difficult for me to give recommendations. Why? Because if you live in Russia, you will, of course, be confronted or surrounded by state-guided information. So it's very simple to say from the West, why don't you do this or that? Because the perception by many Russians will be different on the situation due to a different information they are being provided. Then, of course, for those Russians that do not agree with the current leadership and the policy, it's not simple, on the contrary, to openly oppose the course, because they will face severe consequences. We all know of those opponents, of those opposition leaders that were thrown into jail, killed, threatened, harmed. So you need to have a lot of courage to stand up and say, you know, do that. So that's why I'm saying what I sit here and tell Russians, why didn't you stand up and oppose? I think this would be a very, how should I say, easy call for me to make and very difficult for anybody else to follow. Russia will not disappear. Russia is there. Russia has been a historic nation, and we, of course, would all dream of a future where there is understanding and peace again. But the last decades or last years in particular have taught us that with this system, with this regime, it doesn't seem to be possible. So that's why I don't have a good recommendation there for the Russians. Thank you. But thanks. Good question.
Thank you, Polina. I guess we have time for one.
Yeah, of course. I'm also. So I think there was one here. I'm right. Yes. Yeah, all good.
Which do you think is the biggest difference in the mindset of young German people and young Romanians?
Interesting question. I would say that there are many more similarities these days than certainly years ago. I think the mindset of the young generation, which is shaped by an open, joint, unified Europe, moves closer together much more. You now have an opportunity, and many of you do, of course, to study not only in Romania but also in European countries. The same is true for Germans and other Europeans. So there's much greater mingling, which also leads to a much closer perception of the world and of the challenges. If I were to think of differences, I don't know. I could imagine that for young Romanians, there's much more a question of, will I stay in the country or will I try to work and live somewhere else in Europe, at least temporarily? It's something I hear very often. This obviously is not as much the case for Germans that tend to say, well, I've studied here, I'll stay here. What are the elements for that? Often people would tell me in Romania that while this country is beautiful, there is still this sort of deficit or the deficiency of the health system. The educational system is not as good as people would want to have for their kids. So there are still some infrastructure reasons why some people would say, I might earn as much as I earn when I work in Germany, staying in Romania, but for my family, I foresee a different future. But I do believe this is now really changing. I think many more Romanians now would say, my future is here, because the country is developing. And in a sense, it's a good thing on the one hand to mix and to work temporarily here or there, study here and there. But Romania has a lot of things to offer, so I'm not surprised if more young Romanians would like to stay here and work here. Oh. I'm flexible. You can.
Sorry for the longevity. Your Excellency, I wanted to ask about the Germany's role in Romania's response to refugees from Ukraine. In the past years, 1.5 million people have entered Romania. In December last year was around 50,000 or 7,000 Ukrainians who decided to stay in Romania. What exactly did Germany's role was?
First of all, compliments to Romania for having been and still being such a wonderful host for people that looked for shelter fleeing from the war. Romania indeed was a first responder country, given the long border, and many Ukrainians crossed the border in the very early hours and days of the war. And what Romania perfectly mastered was, again, a very pragmatic approach. At this time, some of you might remember, we still had a very harsh corona regime. You would have actually been required to present a corona test before entering Romania or across the border. Obviously, Romania had said, it's not the time now to ask refugees when the bombs are falling for corona test anything, so let's just be pragmatic. Romania managed in a very impressive way to handle this influx, and impressive in a sense that it was a joint effort from our perception of not only state actors, State Secretary Arafat and the DSU, but also NGOs, civil society, and just ordinary people that opened their homes. There was this financial support scheme of, was it 40, no, whatever the numbers were, of people that would take in refugees, being provided money for, giving a bed and providing food. And this worked in an excellent way, that there was not a breakdown of infrastructure despite the heavy numbers that came into Romania. Congratulations on that. Many of the refugees then, of course, moved further on. When you ask about Germany's role in this endeavor, of course, Germany is now the biggest recipient of Ukrainian refugees, with about 1 million Ukrainians now being currently in Germany, living, being supported. So this is our contribution. When it comes to the Romanian efforts, we of course have also been great supporters, financial supporters for UNHCR, IOM, and other international organizations that shaped the Romanian refugee response. So in this sense, we can take some credit for being financially also in the boat. But this is not to downplay, on the contrary, the really impressive answer of Romania that the country has provided.
I have only one more question for you, and
bring it on.
Your Excellency, I want to ask you, because we know that in the history Romania fight against the Germany, and I want to ask you if you think that the history can repeat because the influence of the Russia in the countries from the east of Europe. Thank you.
I'm very confident that history will not repeat. Because, and this is the case for Germany and Romania, but for Germany and France and all the other neighbors as well, I believe we've all learned a lesson. And one key element of the lesson we've learned is that territorial gains is something of the past. You don't need to be looking for more territory. This has been a driving force for many, or for most wars of the past. This is an element of the Russian aggression against Ukraine that we witness. I once attended a meeting of two political leaders, and one saying, referring to, I think it was a British historian, writing, this is the smallest Germany territorially that ever existed in history, but it's the most prosperous, wealthiest, happiest Germany that ever existed. It stuck to my mind. That's why I might have shared that anecdote last time I was here, but it's an important message, because it shows you don't need to be big in order to be happy and have a happy society. Having said this, coming back specifically to your question, I do not see any appetite for Germans or Romanians to engage in a war over what? Why would we fight? So this is an element where I'm very sure of, but there are many other challenges that we have to face. And the Russian influence is certainly an element that might drive a wedge also into the EU.
I'm coming back to the Green Deal topic, and as you said, all of us, we are fighting with the pollution and clean energy. We want clean energy. So in a couple of words, if you can say why then Germany opened the coal mines instead of investing in more nuclear plants, because it's known the fact that the nuclear energy is the cleanest energy of all. Thank you.
Fair question that you point out. There is, of course, also in Germany a debate about the use of nuclear being CO2 neutral or not, harmful in that sense for climate. Just to make sure we didn't open any coal mines, we of course have to use gas and to a certain extent also coal power plants for a certain period of time until we are in a situation where we can rely exclusively on renewable energy. The nuclear topic, again, it's something that there was a strong anti-nuclear movement in Germany, and also I cannot explain why, but in German, for Germans, this has always been a topic that they felt threatened about. Nuclear power, nuclear pollution. Sometimes peoples have their specificities. The second specificity of Germans is to say we don't want to have a speed limit on the Autobahn. We want to have, you know, the ability to drive as fast as we can. While if you restrict the possession of weapons, nobody would care in Germany. While in the US, if you restrict the possession of weapons, they would all go up the barricades. So it's interesting, and one would have to look at that closer. Why some countries or some peoples have certain elements that might not seem rational, but are just there. Now again, nuclear power plants obviously bring also risk with them. You've seen the Fukushima and Chernobyl disasters that have widespread effects. We see the threat that can be posed by malign actors threatening nuclear power plants. The discussion or the developments around Zaporizhzhia obviously also had an effect on Romania. What would happen if the Russians had decided to blow it up? You know, there was an element of threat connected to nuclear power plants. So it's not all black and white. Personally, I would feel, yeah, let's also look at these options given the threat we are facing with climate change. So I would be the last person, and the federal government of Germany is also the last government to blame Romania for looking into small modular reactors or building up more reactors in Chernobyl. I think the approach right now for my country, for my government, is to say, well, you know, we are a joint Europe. There can be different perception on things, but we understand why some people would still focus on nuclear power, and we don't object to that. No. Chernobyl 3 and 4, yeah, go ahead. There was a debate once. Please, yeah, you finish.
Because that will bring like kind of a, you say, will make Romania energy security, and we can help the other countries around us as well. So that's why I'm.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
it was a big topic in Romanian press and television and so on about
Germany.
We are not allowed, like Romanian government is not allowed to open the cold or to close the. To open.
Yeah, I think what you're referring to is the discussion on the taxonomy. There was the question on, you know, will investments in energy be considered sustainable and therefore have benefits, financial tax benefits. So the question was, of course, renewables are sustainable, but is nuclear to be considered in this sense a clean energy? And while there was in the beginning a German, you know, not so happiness about it, the German government, and they decided, no, of course we should, you know, we are not to block it. It was also mainly because France, of course, is focusing strongly.
That's why I'm asking, because in Romanian press was sold like,
like Germany was opposing?
No, not Germany, but European Union are not agreeing with that. So that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, no, very good that you ask. It was not about prohibiting Romania or any country from going nuclear. It was simply to say, will there be benefits also for nuclear that you have for renewable? And while there was a discussion, in the end, there was an agreement to say, yeah, we are not blocking anybody there also. So
it's again a decision, political decision, which you try to throw the dead cat in somebody else's garden. Put it this way.
I don't know. I mean, the decision has been made here, right? It was very disputed in Romania about Chernobyl 3 and 4. I think we are on a track, and people are sort of just accepting it, right?
Our government doesn't dispute anything. They just swallow it, and that's it, and they go further, as it look like.
Okay. Well, good luck with that. Well, I'm looking at my watch. I'm afraid because two of us will have a follow-up event to attend, that we might have to come to a closure. But
thank you very much, Excellency. This has been very, very fruitful, and thank you for enabling this to happen. And I do hope this becomes a periodical thing. So the floor goes to the Vice Rector for the closing remarks. Thank you so much.
Well, what can I say? It was a wonderful event. Thank you very much. Let's make it a tradition. Meet the German ambassador at the Babeș-Bolyai University. Thank you all of you for coming, and we are going to wait for you for the next event. Thank you very much.
And just a final word for my end, because I want to give the compliment to all of you for the really outstanding questions. It's just underlying, which is known obviously, that this university is an elite school of great minds. Thanks for being so active despite the exam weeks, and I have thoroughly enjoyed it. I really, really did, and I'm happy to have had a chance to engage with you, and I'm happy to come back. Thank you very much. Thanks.